As we approach the playoffs, VGK can ill afford to spot teams' goals, as we saw last night in Nashville, where the Golden Knights trailed by a couple of goals. They battled back before falling in overtime. We'll talk about that.
Your Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco along with Chris Golick. You could find us on Twitter at Tony Dasco, at TD Chris G, and at Locked On VGK. Locked On Golden Knights is the place to be. Of course, on YouTube, please subscribe. We are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more with FanDuel. So, Chris, the Golden Knights, they have 4 games remaining. One of the areas that they really do need to clean up and pay more attention to, they like to talk about paying attention to details. One of the areas that we've discussed, they have to get that early lead. They need to, I want to use that word, sustain. They need to sustain the leads that they get if they can get out to an early lead. Very well could be a key as we come down the stretch. And also, I believe that the Golden Knights are of the belief, I get this feeling, that they can turn it on and off when they need to. And that's not going to be the case. That's not going to work during the playoffs. It just won't. Last night, VGK trailed 2-0. They were in Nashville last night after the first period, down 2 goals, 2 Novak goals. In the second, VGK comes back, and they score a pair of goals to tie the game, 2 Alex Pietrangelo goals. And then after the second, between periods, between the second and third at that intermission, Petro was like, we'll just go out there. We'll get the 1 goal that we need, and then we'll hang on. We'll do it with our defense. I don't know if that's going to work in the playoffs, but they came back. Of course, they tied the game, and they lost it in overtime. And this is a game that they're going to have to clean up, I think, down the stretch. I know it was a tired bunch. We get that. But so was Nashville last night.
So starting with Cassidy's comments on the tired side. So Cassidy didn't make, I think, 12 seconds into the presser last night. And he did mention, Nashville and their younger legs might have carried him through that game. And then that might have been a little bit of a shot at ESPN also. ESPN loves pointing out how old the Vegas Golden Knights are. It's fair, but for some reason, this ESPN absolutely loves that narrative. So listen, there's a lot of weird things, and you and I both thought VGK would win the game. You thought it'd be a little easier than I did. But I also was very clear that Nashville's going to show up, and Nashville played okay. Like, it wasn't a bad performance by Nashville. They took what the VGK gave them, and they were able to get that early lead, ride that to overtime, and then of course VGK alum Cody Glass is the one who pots the game winner. And whatever, you take that penalty in overtime, that's going to happen. It's going to happen more times than not when a team's on the 4-on-3. They're going to find a way to get that goal. I wasn't terribly upset by the game last night. I get the perspective of not a great start, and then they can kind of turn on and kind of do whatever. And that's the perspective of vets who have been there before. And I really learned that about Alex Pietrangelo in one of the post-game pressers when they got crushed. I think it was by the Sharks or something like that early on in the season, when I asked him about, the locker room and, just kind of what this is like right now, and just bounces back. Hey, go back to work tomorrow. Go back to work tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Go back to work tomorrow. And, it's there's no panic, obviously. These things are going well right now. I'll look at like the past 8 games in a little while, but tough spot. Credit Nashville for playing desperate hockey, and the Flames dropped the game last night, of course, so that gives the Preds some new life as they come down the stretch. And listen, go Preds, go! I'll take Preds round 1 if we can make that happen.
I felt a little bit of me felt that the Golden Knights didn't really care if they won or lost this game, because they would want to play the Predators in a series over Winnipeg and over Calgary, which Calgary, man, they lost to Chicago last night. So, maybe they were tanking.
Everyone screwed up that game. Both teams screwed that one up.
Yeah, we saw Jonathan Quick in goal last night. And there could have been a third goal in that contest as the Predators put on a lot of heat in regulation, but it was overturned because I think it was Novak who kicked the puck in net. And I thought that that was perhaps a little bit of a turning point in this game as I was watching it last night. And uh, it would have been a big momentum boost for Nashville. As it turns out, the Predators came back and they wanted an OT anyway.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we'll take the point, and there's a lot of ways we can spin the situation, right? 4 nights, 3 games, 5 points. Cool. Let's not overthink this. Let's not overthink this. I know it would have been nice to get the extra point last night and have an even bigger cushion in these last 4 games, but if we would have, especially the fact that they were staring down the barrel of a goose egg in Minnesota on Monday night. So look at the big picture. Look at the fact that, let's see, let's just go through their last 6 games really quickly here. So we got overtime loss, regulation win, overtime loss, crushed by Edmonton, win, and then the Calgary game where they crushed us. And then you got 4 wins before that. Then you got a loss. Then you got 3 wins before that. You know what I mean? So, there's not a whole lot to think about this one. Special teams, we'll talk about that later. Jonathan Quick, he gave the team a chance to win. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. 2 early goals isn't, the best, the best spot to be in. But at the end of the day, this is actually one of Quick's better performances as a VGK, at least just from a scoreboard perspective. So, let's not put a whole lot of thought into this one, besides the fact that VGK got a point. They get at least a full day to rest and then get ready for a huge game on Thursday, where they're going to get an even more desperate LA Kings team who are trying to, do their best to at least get to the 2nd seed. If not, if they can win this game, all of a sudden that makes this Pacific even, it's razor thin now. So whatever is the next unit below razor thin, if the Kings win Thursday in regulation against the VGK.
So last night, Cassasway moved Dorofeyev to the 3rd line, and he pushes Michael Amadio out of the lineup. And so what is Cassidy's trying to find some combinations he feels at this point of the season that he says will work. But why continue to toy with the lineup now, especially? It's not like you have a commanding lead in the Pacific.
A couple things. I think you want to see the best spot for Dorofeyev. And, Dorofeyev, I mean, he had some chances again last night, too. I liked him better on the 2nd line, obviously, for his output. But there's also a part 2 to this. And they want to see maybe what it's like as some players might be coming back to the VGK lineup at some point. Obviously, starting with your boy Mark Stone. So you want to see how things might shake out in the event he comes back. Like, how can you keep Dorofeyev in the lineup if and when Mark Stone and Will Carrier both come back? How can you keep Dorofeyev in the lineup? And, it's not an easy question to answer. I mean, we can maybe do a lineup show as the playoffs get closer next week, but it's not going to be that easy. I mean, now you're talking Howden, Amadio. I know people are going to say, "Oh, scratch Kolesar, and put Dorofeyev on line 4." That's just crazy talking nonsense.
Don't they need Cotter in there? Don't they need Cotter at some point?
Right now? I mean,
that's your energy.
We get Carrier and Stone back. Cotter, you're not going to see, unless the team needs a spark or they suffer an injury. Cotter is. Let's assume for a second.
I'm talking like now.
Right now, maybe I don't know.
Couple games.
Cassidy, he's looking for things. He's looking to keep players fresh. He's looking to find the right mixes. And, VGK might actually have a line 3 again. It's been on and off as far as that line working, and maybe getting Dorofeyev down there, it gives you that 3rd line. You know what you're going to get out of line 1, although we haven't seen a Eichel, Barbashev, and Marchessault pot one in a minute, it seems like. And line 2 with Carlson, Smith, and whoever they want to toss out there is going to work out just fine. And then line 3 is the line now you're going to start, twisting the dials. I think we started, was it Stevie Waugh and Dorofeyev yesterday or in Kessel?
Yeah.
It was one of those combinations. I'll go back and look, but Cassie's spinning the dials right now, and this is a unique spot right now. VGK looks to have
Stevie Dorofeyev,
a lot of choices.
Kessel. Yeah, that's who it was on that 3rd line.
So and Nick Waz being bounced around right now, who's finding ways to get goals and things. So
They
this
moved
is
them up to the second line yesterday. Wow.
yes, I saw that.
Okay.
I did see that. So, this is where Cassidy's going to have to earn his paycheck right now. This is not an easy spot for Cassidy, because usually when you're at this point of the season, your lines are pretty set in stone, no pun intended. You have usually an amount of attrition and stuff where, you kind of know what players are going to be back, what players aren't going to be back. There's some questions, but it's also a crowded lineup that might get even more crowded the second the playoff calendar starts next week. Wow, that's crazy. Next week, huh? Woo.
I know, that's hard to believe. Coming up next, we're going to talk about that closing kick by the Edmonton Oilers, a look at the standings, and we'll talk about what's happening there, the shakeup in the standings, when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. Well, the NBA playoffs are almost here. Now is the perfect time for you to download FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet. And the first bet is up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just simply download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, and it's super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to the point scores to three-pointers drain. And there's player props, player points, rebounds, assists. You could do that. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet. It's up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn a lot more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick from Las Vegas. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. And you could find us on YouTube. Again, our YouTube address is Locked On Golden Knights. And Chris, we want to talk about teams in the Pacific and teams in the West. Edmonton, #1, is surging 10-0-1 in their last 11. I want to talk about that. They beat the Kings last night. It was 3-1, tightly contested game until an empty net or a Carlson goal lead. And then in the Central Division now, look at the logjam. Colorado, you've got Dallas, and you have Minnesota, all in a three-way tie with 98 points.
I just saw that. Oh, my God.
And they have 98 points apiece. It's getting crazy out there. So if VGK, 4 games, if they could get points in 3 of them, I think they're going to be not only the Pacific Division champs, I think they're going to win the West and the home ice advantage.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with tomorrow night. If VGK can win against the Kings in regulation, that almost but pretty much assures VGK at least the 2nd seed in the Pacific, which would also most likely translate to the 2nd seed in the Western Conference. It's a bit different the way that happened, a bit different the way the seeding works when the playoff starts, but we'll cover that at another time. Going back to Edmonton, they gave up 20, I just counted them up. They gave up 25 goals in their last 10 games. So their goals against right now is 2.5, which is, I'm sure, significantly lower than the previous, 50 games or whatever it is like that. And I put a tweet out last night, remember how good, Happy Gilmore didn't start winning tournaments until he learned how to putts, right? This is what Edmonton's doing right now. Edmonton's learning how to play defense, and they're getting some timely goaltending. That's always been their Achilles heel. So if that continues, Edmonton could be unstoppable, even more unstoppable than a team like Boston. We'll see what happens when the playoff calendar starts. They did make a run last year. We'll see if they have that in them, and we'll see if, what changes as well. Obviously, the power play is still doing what it does. It's remarkable. That's how they got their game-winning goal last night, on a power play. So, it's fun to watch. Edmonton is a fantastic team. And if they can now become a complete team that can play defense, then there might be no stopping them. If all Edmonton has to do is find a way to get 3 goals a night, the rest of the league is on notice right now that Edmonton will run away with this. But once the real lights come on with playoffs, let's see what happens.
Edmonton tonight will be playing at the Ducks, so they've got that back-to-back there. They just drive down the street pretty much, and they'll be playing in Anaheim this evening And this is a team to be reckoned with, as you mentioned. And I'll tell you, it'll be fun to see them run it back if it could be Edmonton and the LA Kings, because that game last night was very electric. And again, it just came down to the latter stages, and they are getting some good goaltending, the Kings, with Phoenix Copley. We will see. It's not going to be the matchup that we wanted to see on Thursday night. So Jonathan Quick won't be in net for the Golden Knights, it appears.
Most likely. I mean, I can't imagine Cassidy's going to roll with him 2 games in a row. I mean, Jonathan Quick has settled into that backup role right now. You know, when Jonathan Quick keeps making the comments, he's here to do anything asked of him. There's definitely a plan right now. Cassidy did mention that at the game I covered when they played the Oilers last week. And you're seeing that plan play out right now. It's get Brossoit as many starts as they can in case he does end up being the number one. I say in case because there's reports now that Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson are both back on the ice skating. So, you know, speaking of a crowded lineup, it's going to get even, well, Oilers are minus 350 against the Ducks. Ducks might be a good bet tonight, folks, but we can talk about that maybe in a tweet or something like that. So yeah, the goaltending carousel might get a little more crowded right now with only 4 games to go. Like, is it Larry gonna just? I mean, Larry might run the table actually, right? Because there's a gap between the 2 Seattle games. There's a day, so I think Larry actually maybe Saturday they might go back to Quick just because it's a matinee, so it's a 12:00 start. You have a day and a half off, but most likely Brossoit is going to run the table and finish the season, I think, and enter as the playoff starter, perhaps. I mean, if he starts 3 out of the last 4 games, I don't see a path where LT or Aiden Hill take the net from Brossoit, but it could be a short leash as well. And yeah, there's more questions than answers as we approach game 78 of the season now.
Do you feel VGK could tighten up? I think they're not going to relinquish the top spot, not just in the Pacific. I think they're going to be the number 1 team overall. Edmonton now, 3 points back of the VGK?
3 points back. LA's 4 points back.
That was a big point for VGK last night.
It really was a big point. I mean, 2
right?
points would have been better, of course. But, you know, again, look at the grand scheme of things. Look what's happened. I mean, you know, I think Edmonton and Vegas are probably the 2 best teams in the NHL post All-Star break right now as a result of what's happening. And all of a sudden, this Charmin soft Pacific isn't necessarily that soft anymore. So it's going to be fun. I mean, I can make an argument for probably 5 or 6 teams in the West that can win the Cup just as easily as the top teams in the East right now. Maybe the Minnesota Wild might be the one team that's a little bit behind that curve. But again, once Kaprizov comes back, he's been skating, obviously. That can certainly change things. We know Colorado is going to be heard from. You see what's happening with Edmonton and LA right now. Can Seattle or Winnipeg or Nashville or Calgary make that jump from the 7th or 8th seed? I don't know about that necessarily, but you know, there's going to be a lot of good teams leaving the playoffs in round 1 on both sides. I'll tell you that much. That 2nd versus 3. You have an earthquake over there, Tony? Or are you typing something right now? You're shaking.
I was just doing my Cassius way.
Cool. All right. Got a metronome going down there or something?
Yeah, I wrote a little note there about.
I take notes too sometimes. It's pretty cool.
Make sure that you complete your checks, Cardasco, on Golic. Okay, I got
it. There you go.
Don't lose any more of these puck battles on the show. Is that good?
And win your races, win your battles.
And there's a lot more cliches on the way. And you know, Edmonton. Yeah, you mentioned since the start of the new year, I should say, Edmonton's been fire. And VGK,
they're fun.
We have to be prepared because we're going to have to do some of these crossover episodes they ask so much of us to do, and we're going to be getting out of market calls and everything. So let me get to everything in my stock answers in place. Turning point for the VGK. I'm going to say, Chris, this season post All-Star break, they really needed that breather at the All-Star break. Even Jack Eichel. And they are getting all over Eichel on the radio side for VGK. Holy smokes, they don't critique anyone. Eichel should be shooting the puck. What's he doing there? Why'd he turn it over? Whoa. There's something happening behind the scenes. We like the drama-rama.
Eichel's a magnet for everything, locally and not locally. I mean, mention Eichel in Buffalo and someone will slap you silly, you know. So Yeah, I mean, listen, Eichel, he had some good moments last night. He was creating some space, doing what he does, just that thing where he goes and stops and does a little trick behind the net and goes back to the blue line and waits to find someone. And it's a play that certainly works and creates some opportunity. I'll go a step deeper as far as the turning point goes, and I'll say it's just fixing the second period. I got some stats laying around somewhere. It was when I was doing the Oilers game. I had my question kind of queued up for Cassidy if it was going to be a good second period. And well, it wasn't a good second period at that game. But if I recall, VGK had only been outscored in the second period post All-Star break. This is prior to the Oiler game last week. So you got a couple more games since. They were only outscored like 3 or 4 times in the second period as a whole. And they were basically, I think it was 27-18 if you only scored the second period for that 22 or 23 games post All-Star break. So that's my turning points of the season. The goaltending, I mean, it's been solid all year. Besides the name on the back of the jersey, the goaltending has been pretty solid all season. So yeah, turning point, second period, Achilles heel, special teams.
Ooh, and that's what we're going to talk about next. The VGK special teams had better shape up as we head into the playoffs. And we'll talk about that when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish that you could handpick the best stars for your business and for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you definitely need Indeed. Why? Because Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you could do it all with Indeed. Find the top talent fast, and you can use Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, virtual interviews. And if you hate waiting, Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment that they sponsor a job. And candidates that you invite to apply through Instamatch, they are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in the search, according to U.S. Indeed data. That's right. And Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. You can sponsor a job, and it'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start the hiring process fast. So join over more than 3 million businesses worldwide that currently are using Indeed each and every day to hire great talent fast. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring right now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights on this Wednesday edition. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick from Las Vegas. You can find us on Twitter at Tony Dasco, at TDChrisG, at Locked On VGK, and on YouTube, Locked On Golden Knights. Please subscribe there. So, Chris, VGK special teams, my goodness, they really blew it last night, including the 5-on-3 advantage that they had in the game. They were 0 for 4, and meanwhile, we saw Nashville scoring twice on power play opportunities.
Going back, I was just looking on covers.com, looking at the special teams rankings for the teams that have won the Stanley Cup over the last few seasons. And it seems like you want to have a top 10 regular season power play as a possible indicator of a playoff run, a deep playoff run. VGK, I think, ranks 17th or 19th coming in to the game, if I'm not mistaken. I'll tell you exactly right now. We got to scroll pretty far. Hold on. They're right in the middle. Looks like they're right around 20 or so after last night's game. So, that's going to be a concern right now. That is definitely a concern. You mentioned spotting goals early in the game. How about spotting special teams goals? Ryan Wallace made a very good point when the Golden Knights played the Oilers the first game on the road. You got to win the special teams, especially against a team like the Oilers. You have to win the special teams. If you know you're going to give up, a 1 or 2 goal disadvantage, whether it's on the PK or on the power play, God forbid we give up a shorty or something like that, That's a real tough spot. And you talk about a team as good as they are on the power play, like the Edmonton Oilers, who are going to convert at a 2-1 clip or something like that, based on what the Vegas Golden Knights are doing. That is where this team is going to win or lose the West and possibly the Stanley Cup. VGK, they have to figure this out. This has been a problem going back to the day that Pete DeBoer took this team over and watching the scoring drought in the playoffs. So now it's Cassidy's turn to find a way to spin the dials. And, he's got a lot of resources at his fingertips as far as players returning, hopefully, and a lot of players in the lineup now who are finding ways to contribute. So they're not going to get to a top 10 power play this season. We know this. We know that's not going to be the case, but can they get some momentum down the stretch during these last 4 games? What if they get one power play goal in each of the 4 games? Just that's crazy talk. I know it's crazy talk, but one power play goal in each of the 4 games and winning the special teams battle. That would be a huge momentum boost, even bigger than winning the West and winning the Pacific.
So VGK, 2 games here down the stretch. The 3-goal special teams game that Edmonton scored 3 power play goals. The 2 goals last night, right? But if Edmonton, right, if Edmonton is the benchmark in power play units, why doesn't VGK try to replicate some of what they do? Because that is so quick, precise, fast, and still again. This was something that we saw at some points with Pete DeBoer. The Golden Knights get tentative and they don't shoot the puck when they have that lane. It's perplexing at times to me.
It definitely is. And, people like you and I are going to start making the comments and we're going to be yelling from the cheap seats, shoot. I get all of that. And at times,
except for Colasar, because the puck's going to wind up in the 200s if he does.
Yeah, no, you definitely want to make sure you got your eye protection if you're not sitting behind that net directly. So I get that. But, maybe Colasar should be on the power play, just sticking right in front of the goalie. I mean, Gerard Gallant did that. And even DeBoer at times at the end of the power play, like last 15, 20 or so seconds, they'd shove Reeves out there if there's a low defensive zone faceoff and, go out there and try and cause some trouble. I mean, maybe they got to do a little more of that. You see VGK trying. So there's a couple different ways that they move the puck around on the power play. You notice like the player who's in the bumper position before the puck is worked down low, they're almost on the blue line or just inside the blue line, kind of acting on the top of that umbrella while they're working the perimeter. And then they're using that player to spring one of the players on the left and right side who's going to be on the circle, trying to find that lane. And then they go down to the bumper position. And Colorado does that so well. They'll have 4 players up on the top of that blue line, just moving the puck. And then they wait for their seam to open. And then they move as an entire unit and they get low. Tampa's really good at that as well. I like Tampa's puck movement even better than Edmonton's puck movements. Edmonton gets you with the speed and the puck movements. Tampa simply does it with their passing, and they create that one-timer, aka the way Ovechkin has made an absolute living dominating this league scoring goals. So, is now the time to be messing with different plans and stuff like that? I don't know. I mean, it hasn't necessarily been working, whatever they've been doing, but it's also had flashes, right? There was a time when the power play was amongst the top 10 early on in the NHL, and then it's obviously fallen away pretty hard from November and on. So, this is where Cassidy has said this again. He's got to earn his money with the lineup. He's got to earn his money with the special teams. I know there's other coaches that handle those duties, quote unquote, but at the end of the day, this is Cassidy's team. It's Cassidy's responsibility, and Cassidy has to answer the call from McCrimmon and McPhee as to why the power play isn't working.
I play this little game like after VGK loses a game, what will the narrative be? And I turn on the radio. What do you think the narrative was last night?
Schedule back to back. Tired legs. They're old.
No. Mark Stone. Mark Stone again. How long has it been since they've played without Mark Stone in the lineup?
January 12th, my birthday. That's how I know that. January 12th, my birthday.
Okay. So
Florida
they're
Panthers.
0 for 4 on the power play. That's not. And when Stone comes back, who's to say that the
Cassidy's you made that comment too? Cassidy made that comment.
Why? It's like that's a crutch right now.
He said last night. Now the press conference is coming back. He
Okay.
made the comment. We lack that shooter on the power play. We lack that shooter on the power play.
And he's
Michael's a
really
pretty good sniper. So is Marchessault. To
right.
say Stone is even better at that than those two fellas, I'd argue.
He was great in
I'd
the
argue
bumper
against that.
position. He was terrific there, and he's got some grit behind him. Okay, I get
Mhm.
all of that, but it's been so long ago that why are they just trying to bank on him to come back to solve all of their issues on the power play? We
Because
had
he's coming
some
back. Because he's coming back, Tony.
that
That's
would be
why.
crazy. Oh man.
It's not crazy.
But
It's not crazy. It's not crazy. It's
I
happening,
took the
Tony.
will not, man. I took the will not at plus money.
You of all people not trusting the VGK when it comes to stuff like this. You of all people, Tony.
Okay, so there was an interesting stat last night. Michael Raftery was tweeting at me, and so last night Leon Draisaitl scored his 31st power play goal, 3-1.
And what does VGK have, like 40 power play goals?
So yeah, so they have 40. So they have 40 total power play goals. So that's what the banter was. Do the Knights even have 31 power play goals for the season? And the total is 40, but that's out of the
He has, and
stratosphere.
at the time, this is before
31.
the last week of games. Leon Draisaitl also had 27 one-timer goals as well. I mean, it's just what they're doing in Edmonton is phenomenal on both sides right now.
37 one-timers.
27 one-timer goals.
27 one-timers. Just that's a clean look and just a clean goal. I mean,
who is it? Joey?
insane.
Is it Rosati? Is that the fellow's last name?
Yeah.
That's
a good one.
Back with a lot. He mentioned, about the power play basically carrying Edmonton last nights, and I reminded him right away. I said, "Listen, as dangerous as the Edmonton power play is, it's even more dangerous if they get their goaltending and defense worked out. Their power play is phenomenal, but Edmonton's defense and goaltending is of greater importance than their power play. And what I mean when I say that is Edmonton's going to do what they're going to do on the power play. It's not, they're going to score. You give them 4 power play attempts in a game, they're getting at least 1, possibly 2, even 3 goals, which is not that unexpected. But the goaltending and the defense, that's always been the concern about Edmonton. Just maybe they got it figured out right now. And say it again, if their defense and goaltending holds up like this, they will be unstoppable in the playoffs. They will be unstoppable in the playoffs.
Make sure that you ask John Stevens next time you see him about the power play unit.
You got to get him fast because he gets very little camera time. You got to get him fast when he goes across the camera.
He went across the camera. You said, "Oh, wow, look, John Stevens is being," oh, no, he's not being interviewed, but he makes an appearance at the post-game presser. He walked right through the front of it.
I think it was practice, but either way, yeah.
Whatever that was. So that was pretty good. We thank everyone for making Locked On Golden Knights your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, it's Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game across the NHL with local analysis, including that from our own Chris Golick, and it's only on Locked On. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL. It's available as well on the Odyssey app, and also our show could be found on there, and that's terrific. You could find that every day, and you could also find Game to Game on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. So for my man, Chris Golick, I'm Tony Cardasco. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll preview VGK versus the Kings. If the Kings had won against Edmonton, it would have been a little bit more spicier, more on the line. But
it's going to be plenty
spicy.
This will be the playoff game of playoff games right here. This is the one.
Should be fun. All right, we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Golden Knights.